Hey everybody, this is Dan from Renegade Crowdfunding. Just going to tell you a little bit about the ads secrets that drove some of the performance behind this campaign, which, as you can see, funded over 550%. It was live in October time. The creators, Daniel and Juno, based over in Australia, made this fantastic game, cozy bird vibe, quite differentiated, but familiar enough for backers to feel like, hey, this is something I want on my table. This is art I would like in my eyes for the length of time it takes to play a game. So let me show you some of the ads that drove it, because Daniel and Juno have been kind enough to say that anything that they learned or we learned together, they are happy for the community to know in case it helps someone else, because they literally said the rising tide floats all boats. So first thing, if I just jump into the ad account, I've got it selected with all time here. I've got a little filter on there for pre-launch, which just in my naming convention, like you can see here, just rips away the live campaign spend, already late pledge stuff. So it's just pre-launch in here. And the first thing to mention to you is we're not targeting globally. We're just in places where we know Kickstarter has a good propensity of buyers. So you can get really cheap clicks and really cheap leads in various countries in the world, but those are going to be really inefficient clicks and leads when it comes to trying to get them to buy your game once it actually goes live. So we don't have any of that. We just have, you can see North America, USA, we have Australasia, Australia and New Zealand. Then we have the EU, which in our parlance is English speaking Europe with no UK, and UK gets split out by itself. But that's by the by. So once you've got those broken out in that way, that's important because it's allowing you to control the budgets. And those are also important because the conversions and the cost per lead you're going to get through these different territories are going to be quite different. And if you throw them all in together, it makes it much harder for the algorithm to sort of assign the right amount of money to each of those territories. And it also makes it harder for you to visualize, hey, what's working for me and what's not. So by having it broken out in this way, it's much easier to go, oh, okay, the US is doing well, therefore I'll keep on pouring money into the US, or whatever the case may be. But if I just jump into any one of these campaigns here, I'm going to tell you just about what we did in the very first beginning of pre-launch, because for most people, that's going to be the most important thing that you do. The first days or weeks of pre-launch are really telling you, is this campaign going to work? Does it have a chance of doing well when the campaign goes live on Kickstarter? And really, you're looking for cost per leads to come back super cheap in order to feel confident that it does have that good chance. And so let me show you what we've got here. We set up a system which had just three different sets of interest targeting. And so you can see there's one here that's based around card game players, one that's based around tabletop board game players, and one that's more sort of subject matter based around birds and animals. And because all of those also have crowdfunding against them as well. And so let me show you what that means. I'll go into the tabletop one first because it's maybe the most sort of direct and literal for what this project was. So let me go down to the targeting layer over in here. Look. So I'll just show you what I'm doing. Back in the days before Andromeda, there used to be a potential to go much deeper in terms of the long tail of these keywords, but most of that's gone. So we're left with kind of the head terms, as you might call it from paid search terminology. But so you see here, you've got tabletop games, you've got board games. So pretty straightforward stuff. But the crucial bit, if you're not already doing this, is that and also must match. And then you're putting a bunch of crowdfunding related terms. And what that's saying is, unless someone likes or belongs to one of these interest pots and also belongs to one of these pots, then they're not going to see an ad. So it's saying you must like both of them in order to see it. And so what that's doing for this campaign is it's not just finding people who like board games, it's finding people who like board games and are early adopters of new tech and have backed other crowdfunding campaigns and therefore feel safe to do it and probably already have an account. So it's easy for them to click on it, see the project and hit follow and then not have to put their email address in and kind of go, oh, I can't be bothered, I'll come back later. So this second layer of data is really important. So the first thing we did, really straightforward, really literal tabletop games and board games, board gamers of people who like crowdfunding stuff. The next one is the card game one, which is really interesting because on the whole, Isle of Feathers is not a card game, but the card game keywords often do really well, regardless of what kind of tabletop game it is. And it was the case in this project as well. So let me show you what's in there. Here we go. Again, you got party game, you got card games, so quite broad and a little bit straying away from maybe what the core of this game is. But because the nature of Andromeda has siloed or recategorized a bunch of the smaller keywords into some of the bigger ones, and we don't always have great understanding of where the little keywords have been rehomed after Andromeda, you end up with some unusual performance, as a result. And this is one of those cases. So I recommend you try things which are adjacent to literally the people that you think you're targeting. What's one step removed like this? Because this turned out to be a strong performer. And again, you've got the crowdfunding keywords overlaid down the bottom there. And then the other one is the birds and animals. So, as you might imagine, there's bird watching, there's birds, and we had other versions of this as well, where maybe people who like wildlife documentaries and nature photography, all that kind of stuff. And you can see how the first two of those keyword sets were related, very similar to one another. This one is quite different because it's subject matter rather than hobby based. The hobby being, of course, the tabletop gaming. But still, you have these pre-qualifiers or this additional layer of targeting down there to make sure that it's not just someone who likes birds and bird watching, but it's someone who also um, has a history of backing these kind of get campaigns on Kickstarter. Therefore, they're likely to be able to convert on this one. So on the targeting layer, we did do other things as well. But to start off with, this is kind of where we began. And you don't need to get too much more complex than that in the first instance, especially if your budget's modest. Most of our budgets are modest. So there's not necessarily any point making 10, 15 different ad sets and subdividing your budget across all those different pots and end it with very little information each one of them. Have three, maybe maximum five different ad sets to start off with, and then see which ones of them starts to give you performance, and then look to test further beyond that or optimize further once you've got those details in. Um, the other thing I would like to show you is I'm just going to jump across to Daniel Juno's post-campaign report here, which I'm going to share in the notes as well. You can see all of this information later on. I'm just going to show you for the pre-launch creatives what won. So we had like 15 different images over time. And as you can see from the notes here, 91% of all the leads came from these ones here. Our approach for brand new campaigns is you want to be having 3 to 5, 6, maximum 8 ads live in each ad set to start off with. Now, there are arguments and proof cases with Andromeda that you can go much higher, 20 ads, 30 ads, and the system will work it out. The system being, Meta's black box algorithm. But that tends to be true if you have a lot more money to spend per ad set. And if you don't, it works better to keep it relatively tight to start off with, have quite significant differences between the different creatives that you have. So you allow the algorithm to work out what's working best for it. And then, of course, for your second set of creative, you can build around the things which are giving the most joy from round one. And so the takeaways from this are for that first couple of weeks of pre-launch, which was so like incredible for us. It gave us really strong CPLs, great volume. We picked just 3 images of these 5 that we liked the most and put them live versus 2 pieces of copy. Let me show you down here. It was originally just the whimsical copy and the tactical copy. You can ignore this early bird copy because that came into play later on. And the logic behind the 2 pieces of copy was you can either define the game by how it feels to play. That's what the whimsical thing is doing here. Or you can define the game for literally how it operates, what the tactical aspects of it, which is over here. And at different players, or even the same players at different points in their consideration journey, you're going to respond to one or other of those approaches in more favorably, accordingly. So what we did was pick the three images that we liked the most to start off with, and then made 6 ads by taking those three and timesing it by these two pieces of copy. So you end up with 6 ads, 3 images times 2 copy. And very quickly, it starts to let you know, okay, what is the textual approach that's working? What's the visual image creative approach that's working? And it starts to tell you really quickly where you should be optimizing and testing into next for both of those two parameters, if that makes sense. So the last thing I wanted to show you was, excuse the madness of my desktop here. Um, when you're building out these ad sets, one of the big watch outs is what Meta might be doing to you in terms of its AI, especially AI around the creative, because it can be really damaging. And so when you're in there, let's say we just edit this media, just for an example. Um, and you see when you get to the enhancements, this is where Meta's kind of saying, hey, do this, do this, do the other. Some of these things are very benign. Some of them are very damaging. Some of them are quite helpful. Over time, these have gone from being complete junk to, like I say, some of them being quite helpful in certain situations. And as time goes by, these will get more and more helpful. So the recommendation isn't to always delete these, but it's to be very intentional about which you do and don't use and why. And so, unless you understand them, unless you know what it is you're wanting from them, switch these suckers off because you're more likely to get stung than to benefit from them. Um, but the ones that generally are safe, these overlay ones, because it adds a little bit of your call to action and description text over the images, and that often works well. The music one works nicely, but you've got to go in there and customize it to what you want. Otherwise, it'll pick some ridiculous piece of music which doesn't fit the content at all. And again, that will get better, but to date, it's madness. So go in there, choose the thing that works, because this really does help you pop out, especially when you're in news feeds. And this bit of animation helps just draws the eye. So those ones are benign. But the ones to really look out for are anything that talks around links. So if it's saying, oh, I'm going to customize which link I send your traffic to, no, thank you. Anything that says, oh, I'm going to bring in other products, no, thank you, because I'm a Kickstarter. I have one page, I have one product. Stop trying to diversify where you send my users. So don't let it do any of that. So the other thing to watch out for is, aside from when you're in the create flow, Meta has a tendency to try and jam a bunch of these things on, and you want to turn those suckers off, apart from the few that you think are safe. After you've even published these ads, you will quite often find that Meta just sneakily switches these things on, even though you haven't explicitly told it to. So really keep an eye out for that. And one of the ways that before you publish anything or before you hit publish on something that you're just editing from before, because it has a tendency, you've already published it, you've got it right, but then you might be changing a piece of copy or something. And then in the act of doing that, Meta's going, I'm going to sneak in this bit of AI creative control, which you never authorized it to do, but it's just bringing in through the back door, be it a bug or otherwise. This happens lots. It's very frustrating. So before you publish anything, both the first time publish and whenever you've done an edit, just select all the ads that you're about to upload, hit edit each ad, and we're not actually going to edit them. We're just going to use this for a little bit of an audit. Then you can see in here, you've got Advantage plus Creative. And just in a heartbeat, you can just skim down here and you know that you've told it, these are the only 4 things that I wanted. So you're just skimming through just to check, hey, wait a minute, does one of them suddenly have a fifth? And again, like the real ones to watch out for, and anything that's changing the links and adding products and so on. But you'll end up with your own list of ones that you really care about. So yeah, those are the key watch outs, guys. Feel free to ping me in the comments if you have questions about this. Um, or other things. Anyway, happy crowdfunding. See you later.